Welcome to Goldfish on Games, where we all know the Amiga is an amazing machine. But you know what would make it better? A light gun. And the good news is there was a few, but the bad news is that they're particularly difficult to get your hands on. But the better news is there's an alternative. For this, we're going to need a light phaser from the Sega Master System, and a small converter, which is actually quite simple to make. Here's a very quick and dirty diagram. You just connect these 4 wires as shown, and then just add a 10 kilo-ohm resistor between these pins. Now I used this box to make things easier on myself, and the hardest bit was just finding out the pin to wire colour. And with that made, we just got to connect the light gun, and then connect it to the second joystick port. And now it's time to boot Workbench. Now I'm using my Amiga 1200 machine in combination with the amazing WHD load. The main reason for this is some of the games have been fan patched to work directly with this mod, such as the mighty Operation Wolf, which as we can see comes with a doc that describes the very mod that we're using. And as we start the game, WHD load actually gives us an option to disable the flashing white screen that other light guns actually required to work, but the Sega Light Phaser doesn't need it, which makes the game much nicer to play. This is far more colourful and talkative than the Spectrum version that we've seen previously, with far more happening on screen, but it does feel a little clunkier and slower. Thankfully, for the most part, the light gun patch works great. Aiming can be a little fiddly at times, but typically you can put the shot where you want it after a bit of work. It's a shame that everything seems to take way more hits than you'd expect, so it becomes a real slog to play. And having to hit the spacebar for grenades isn't great, as it doesn't seem to always trigger. The sequel, Operation Thunderbolt, didn't review much better than the original, but again it's nice to have it patched with light gun support, and if you hit the C key on this or the previous game, you get a calibration screen, so you can try and dial in that gun a little bit better. The game itself doesn't really run smoothly, but it does seem to register the shots much better than before, but you still have the same problems with the spacebar, which seems to be a recurring problem to be honest. Amazingly, neither of these games had any light gun support to start with. They were designed for just the mouse. It's amazing what the Amiga community have been able to patch in with the help of the WHD load system. But not all games needed to be patched, like Die Hard 2. Which doesn't mention light guns anywhere at all on the box. But once we boot the game up and go into the options, we can select it from the various input methods, which gives us a calibration screen right away. And I have to say, I've played this game in the past and never really liked it, but with the phaser, it's a really fun game. Aiming seems to be really quite good, though the hitbox for the pickups seems to be a little small, but baddies go down quite nicely, and the friendlies will run away if you shoot too close to them. Now I might have missed this in the movie, but McClane now has grenades, which for some reason look like rockets on the HUD. And those are triggered by, yes you've guessed it, the spacebar, but they are screen clearing fireballs of death. And when you get onto the second level, you even get a chance to shoot out the windows and the TV screens, which is a really great touch. The only downside is the white flash when you fire, but it's not as noticeable as we've seen on other machines. final game we're going to look at is Sideshow, which was made by Actionware, who just so happened to release one of the few light guns for the Amiga. And the mod we did turned the phaser into an Actionware gun, which means the game supports the gun with absolutely no work. Sideshow is set, as you might have guessed, at a circus, where you start with a number of tokens which you have to spend at the various sideshows. These will allow you to earn more tokens if you do well, and thus play more games. These normally involve shooting the right item on screen, but how and when they show up varies from game to game. And the whole thing is presented like a Cinemaware title, and does look quite nice in places. Personally, the shooting didn't seem as good as some of the previous games, as getting your aim in was far more difficult, which is odd as the phaser is actually meant to be a better light gun than what Actionware themselves released. Those were just a few of the games that I managed to get running, but I believe there's a few more, so if you give this mod a go and you get them running, please let me know in the comments, as I'd love to hear how well they run, and who knows, there could be another video. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was Sega and Amiga running together, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider using your light gun or any other peripheral you happen to have to hand to hit the like, subscribe, or even the share button. Or you can use it to check out the 2 other videos you can see on the screen right now.